Hi, Josh Carr here. So today's topic of conversation is the side letter. What do I mean by a side letter? Basically, in a partnership structure, you usually have like the general partner and the limited partner. But sometimes what happens is one limited partner says, "Hey, I want to get a special deal that the other limited partners don't get." Now, maybe the limited partner gets that special deal because he's putting in more money than other people. Maybe he's got certain relationships he's bringing to the table. I don't know. But long story short, sometimes someone wants a special deal. And I guess the first thing to say about special deals is if you're going to give an investor a special deal and you're not giving the other investors a special deal, you really kind of have to disclose that in the operating agreement, right? Because in practice, if you only give one guy a special deal and you don't give the other people a special deal, they're going to be like, "Hey, why didn't you tell us?" And I'm not making a statement here about the legality of it because, again, I'm not an attorney, right? What I am just saying is that generally, if you're making a deal with one guy, the other people might want to know about that, right? So I think this is really more conversations about ethics than about law. Anyway, that said, this document ended up on my desk. And this is the kind of thing that makes me, frankly, want to just punch lawyers because lawyers have a habit of writing these things and then never actually building a spreadsheet to explain what the hell to do with it. So here goes. So in this case, they had an agreement that said there was a managing member and an investor. I blacked out the name of it because they didn't just call it managing investor. They called it, beep investor. That's me beeping my own video. So I won't use swear words. I'll just use the word beep if I need to. So this beeping guy is going to split money with the investor. And it basically says, essentially, that if money's coming in, say $1 million, and we've agreed that we're going to split it, say 45-55, if you did nothing else, $450,000 would go to the Triple X member, and that's my BEEP member, and 55% would go to the investors. The investor money then needs to get split up. And often the general partner, the managing member, call them what you will, is usually sitting on both sides of the table. They're both getting a promote, and there's also a question about how you split the money. So if we just said, okay, the general partner gets 45% of the upside, and of the other 55% of the money that's getting split up, they would get 10% of that money, which is 55. And then the special guy, we'll call him Edward, he put up 3.12% of the money, and he's going to get 3.12% of this amount, which is 17 grand, which is 1.7% on the 55, right? So if you think about it, like 3% of 55 is another way of saying he's getting 1.7 of the pool. Okay, so far so good. $1 million to distribute. 45% goes to my managing member. 55% goes to the investors in various amounts. These numbers add up to 100%. Edward gets 17 grand, which is 3% of 55 or 1.7 of the pool. Now here's where it gets weird. This side letter, this document then goes on to say, this special investor will be entitled to receive from the managing member an amount equal to be the difference between the amount paid to them and the amount that would have been paid to them had it said not 45%, but instead 30%. So now I run it a second time. And now instead of splitting it 45-55, I split it 30-70. So 300, 700, the 700 gets split out. And under this circumstance, Edward would have gotten 21 grand. It then says for clarity, and this is a blessing that the attorney did this because he actually worked it out apparently. He said for clarity, the initial money that this guy was putting in was 3.12. That's part A. It then says 3.12 times 55% is 1.71. So far so good. Then it says over here 3.12 times 70% is 2.18. Awesome. And then it says the payment owing from the managing member, my Triple X guy, my BEEP member, my GP, call them what you will, is going to be the difference of this number and this number, in other words, 0.468, that's tying out to the 0.47, or in other words, if there's a $150,000 difference, we're going to give this guy that amount of money. And that's the payment going from the managing member to the member. It's basically saying, look, we would have split 45-55, but I'm going to give this guy a special deal. And instead of me taking 45% of the upside if I'm the general partner, I'm going to give this guy a little bit of a taste. I'm going to give Edward a little bit of the taste of that. I'm going to give him, if I'm getting 450 and under Edward's original calcs, he wanted me to get only say 300, that's a 150 difference. I'm going to give him a little bit of that 150, and 150, if I sort of do the math, that's the difference there, but it's saying essentially this here, right? It's saying as you go from 45% to 30%, that is the payment that is coming out of the GP's 45%. So instead of the GP getting 450, the GP gets 450 and then cuts Edward a check for $5,000. There you go. Now, this is definitely convoluted. The other way of doing this would have been to say, I will make Edward both an LP and a baby GP. In this case, instead of saying I'm going to put Edward legally in the ownership position on the GP side, it just is saying, no, I'm not going to put him legally on the ownership side, but when I do my calculations, I'm going to pay him like an LP, like a limited partner, and they give him a taste of the general partnership as if he were a little mini general partner, but I'm not going to make this legally messy. I'm not going to have him legally be on the other side, ownership-wise. I'm just going to give him some of the cash flow. So there you go. This is why lawyers drive me nuts. In fairness, this guy actually worked out the math, which was a blessing for all parties involved, because to try to figure this out without the for clarity part would have been very painful. Cool. Hopefully you find that interesting. If you're dealing with side letters, maybe this little 7-minute video pushed you in the right direction. And if you're not doing side letters, I guess you can just ignore this entire conversation. But then again, if that's the case, why did you click on the video? Good question. Cool. Anyway, until I see you again, keep building better models.